Alright, so we went and picked up some black diesel. Well, it's about to be black diesel. There's 600 litres in this one and about 750 in that one. In these IBCs, this one I just picked up yesterday. As you can see, not quite, a bit over half full. Now I go and pick it up in these totes, and I use a Milwaukee pump. I transfer it out of normally 44 gallon drums into these. That one's got a lot more in it. So, I've got a bit of a system. I use a bit of gravity separation to help me. So this one doesn't move, it stays where it is. This is for go and get fuel oil one. This one allows me to let it sit and separate. So a lot of the heavy stuff will sink to the bottom of this before we go and filter things. And that's a good thing. Sometimes I do connect the solar panel up to this filter. I do have a little plunger pump there that'll run off a solar panel. I connected it up to this fuel filter, which is off a Mitsubishi Triton, which has a water separator in it. And I don't know if the hose is there. There's a hose with a, there it is, hose with a brass nut on it, like a fitting. So when you drop that in the oil, that'll sink all the way to the bottom, and then I pump it through that cheap fuel filter. That is they're about $11 each. So I generally transfer from this tote to that tote through a 20 micron house filter. I used to pump out of the customer's totes to this tote with a 20 mic, but it's too slow when you're on site. It's actually still too slow with the Milwaukee transfer pump. I'm going to start taking the electric one, and then if I use my work truck, I've got power on board, otherwise I'll take my generator, because sometimes the customers aren't there. So yeah, we've got, what have we got there? We've got 7.6, it's like 1,600 litres sitting there, 1,500 litres sitting there, and that one's a bit more than 700, I reckon. It's actually quite deceptive, because a lot of these totes will hold more like 1,100 litres by the time you actually get them full. But for a lot of liquids, their safe fill level is like there, obviously for expansion and stuff like that. Right, now let's show you where they head to after they're in there. As you can see, that's the way it gets in the old farm truck quite often. I can run a mix in my four-wheel drive as well, but I don't tend to do that too often. Also generators love running on it. We have the big Lister generator there that we're waiting for a starter motor on. And we also have an air-cooled single-cylinder Yanmar clone over there. So always at least make sure your lid's sitting on there. Let's have a look in here. This is where the filtering magic happens mostly. So we have another tote with about 900 litres in this. It's ready for a bit more unleaded to do the actual final cut with. So anything that I suck out of a vehicle or extract with a vacuum extractor out of an old fuel tank or whatever goes through that air filter, and that catches all kinds of nasties and dirties in the bottom. I also don't tip all of my fuel drums into said vehicle or tractor or diesel engine. I normally leave whatever sludges in the bottom settled, because it will settle again. I normally leave that in there, and then I do that with them, set them up on there and let them go. So a finished product is still very black, but it's generally got nothing settled in the bottom of it. You can leave it for a couple of weeks and you won't have anything kind of settle in it. I've got one here I can probably show you. This one does have some injector cleaner, which is an alcohol base, which will settle in the bottom. And you can see the alcohol based injector cleaner has a small settle in the very bottom of that fluid. Anyway, that's been sitting there a month, just as a sample, because I wanted to see if the injector cleaner could be added directly to the pot, to try and burn some of the water, because alcohol base means that it'll suck it up and turn it into the water. So we have this pump on this side, which is a Sure Flow, like a boat deck pump or whatever, and that's got a pressure switch on it to protect it from getting too high in pressure. That's sucking from the bottom of this tote. This tote is the mix and discharge tote, so this gets pumped round and round and round and round all day long, essentially. So that goes through a marine fuel oil separator. As you can see, we've got some sediment in the bottom of that. We'll make a video cleaning that one day. The best part about these is they generally, the filter doesn't seem to block. It seems to have all the stuff drop out of suspension on the filter down into there. I've not yet changed one of those filters, and it's 10 micron. So that's a really good design if you want to do this. The discharge from this goes into this top 60 litre. The only reason that's up there is when I am mixing my unleaded in with it. It gives me a bit of a free mix because it's got like a bit of a splash zone, and yeah, I tip the unleaded into the top drum and let it run down in here. I used to use this with a bed sheet tied into it, like a lot of the guys in the UK and stuff do. That works, but I'm not clogging fuel filters at all anymore, so obviously this is probably working better. Now the big elephant in the room, centrifuge. So this is a centrifuge made for a large stationary engine. So inside here, let's show you what's inside if you're not familiar with how a centrifuge works. This is a pressure driven centrifuge. There's two different kinds, there's direct drive and pressure driven. This one's the pressure driven, so this little pump creates hydraulic pressure through that hose and feeds into the bottom of here. See how that dome's completely clean? That's because that spins like crazy. And it's all clean in here. It's because that rotates like a rocket. So, in the bottom of this dome, there are a pair of jets facing opposite directions. And that hydraulic pressure makes that spin like a rocket. And then the housing drops the oil down through the bottom and back into the tote. Now this does around 14 litres a minute with 85 psi. I think I've got about 60 psi, judging by the sound the relief valve makes when the oil's thick. That will allow me to make, say, around 10 to 12 litres a minute. So 10 litres a minute turns the tote over in 100 minutes, which is just under 2 hours. So every 2 hours, just for conservative sake, let's say every 2 hours you turn the entire tote over. This pump sucks from the very bottom of the tote as well. And I also have an airline here which has a moisture filter back on its big tank, and that's connected to that copper tube. I poke that in the bottom of the tank and blast that every now and again just to get the just do that up while we're doing it, just so I don't forget. I understand that that's meant to go the other way, but the nut that comes with these is like a half-size nut, and it's at the bottom of the tank. And I haven't cut another one down to suit it. It won't actually leak out of the top when it's working properly. It's just a matter of putting a little bit of pressure on it just to squeeze down onto this seal. I bought this from Alibaba. It came really quick. I was going to get a Syntex kit, so this is bigger than the big Syntex one. I couldn't justify the price. They're $2,000 for the kit. I paid $90 for the pump. If you want a link from eBay, let me know. I'll send you an affiliate link. It gives me a little kickback, you know the deal. And this is from Alibaba. Now I'm considering importing these and selling them for a little bit of a profit, just because they work so awesome. I'd probably make up a hose for people, because that was the only thing that cost me a bit extra. The hose guy stuffed me up. He thought it was this thread back here. When he made the hose, it was incorrect, so I had to get an adapter with a downy washer between the two. So that little section there cost $80 to fix the dumb hose guy's mistake. But anyway, all good. It's a nice hose that he did make. It's oil resistant. It's a hydraulic grade hose for an excavator. Obviously it's not going to see over 100 psi, so it's going to last forever. It's a once off. This pump has hundreds and hundreds of hours on it, and I really highly rate them. Like I said, really cheap. eBay pulls about 600 watts, 700 watts when it's running. I run it on solar, so it costs me effectively nothing. So when I want to discharge fuel out of this rig, there's a couple of ways I can do it. I do have another hose that goes on here with a trigger nozzle, which is the hose that I'm using currently to pull customers' fuel and fill my pods. That's got a nozzle on it, so it auto stops when it gets full, which is a great setup. I've made a mess a few times accidentally, as you can see on the outside of this tote. I want a bund. You want to get a self-bunded base for this tote, because I've had, obviously you get a few leaks and fails, or you spill a bit. So the way this fuel is now, it's definitely thin enough. I've got a lot of crap out of it. Basically you just pull the center out of the centrifuge and dig all the carbon and rubbish out of the center of the centrifuge every probably 15 hours of runtime. So I quite often, if there's an excess of solar energy, I'll get my wife to turn this on, or I'll come home during the day when I'm coming home for lunch or whatever, and I'll flick it on, let it run for a few hours once the batteries are full, and just get some runtime hours on it. Basically, it's the reason I went for the expensive hose. You could probably do stuff with hose fittings and clamps and stuff like that, but imagine if you had like this whole tote pump out in your shed. So I didn't skimp on the hose. They're all lock sealed together with thread locker, downy washers, all done up properly. I do get a tiny drip out of this hose because this cone shaped hose barb slash fitting doesn't quite seat properly, but as you can see, the pod's essentially self-bunded on the top of the pod, so as long as it lands somewhere within the depressed section of the pod, it really doesn't matter. As you can see that running down there, it's got holes in it to do that. So I just use household filters like this one. This one's a carbon filter, which is not necessary. The reason I had this carbon filter is I put it out of a customer's house they were using for water, and it was too slow for their whole house because it's only a small filter. The previous plumber put that in. So that was just a freebie. We don't say no to a free filter. I thought I'd be buying these over and over, but they just seem to be lasting. Also, these fleet guards are good as well. But this gets me under 10 micron, and then when centrifuge is on, that's hard to gauge what that'll actually get. I've ran a Mitsubishi Triton on this fuel, just an off-road bus. I've ran a Mazda T4100 truck. It doesn't mind it. I tried to run a Volkswagen Touareg. It didn't like it at all. The Touareg struggles with it. That's a PD injection though. That's not a common rail or anything. That's truck style injection. Single cylinder generator loves it. At least a 3-cylinder generator loves it. And mine and my dad's, I'll show you them. Mine, this is my single cylinder Lister LT1. There's dad's one. He's made his electric start, and that's got a Ford Falcon flywheel, an electric starter, and a 4 kVA genset still going on that big frame he's built, which would be very cool. This is my one. I haven't done much with mine yet. I need to get a crank handle to make it easy to start off that. It's a 2-to-1 drive on this side, and then we will belt drive probably a big 24-volt alternator off a truck. But these direct injection diesels with this style P pump injection, love it. You can see I've got it there in the thing. They run on it really well. Keep the moisture out of them and they'll run fine. It's actually great. It lubricates all of the injection stuff because you've got all these additives for lubrication and cleanliness. So diesel engine oil and automatic transmission fluid's great to put in there. Yeah, so my aim is to get a half decent sized generator, like 20 kVA, that I can run off this fuel mostly in stationary kind of application and just make cheap power. So In summer, you have to cut it a lot less. In winter, you need a bit more unleaded to cut it. One of the best things for cleaning stuff up, I found, is terps, mineral turpentine. It just blasts it off. And the best part is, that goes in the tank and thins what you've got and increases the cethane rating, so that you can get it to burn nicely and start better on colder days. You see I've got a jug that's sitting there. Probably shouldn't be open like it is, but it also gets filtered on the out, so it still goes through that 10 micron again on the out, or I run it through a house filter to the pump nozzle. So with this little pump you can fill that 4-litre jug, or that 4-litre container, in probably 25 seconds. It's certainly not slow. Yeah, I'm looking for a little tractor or a little excavator or something I can run on as well. Just all those kind of off-road applications. And yeah, this is how I make black diesel in my shed at home with free oil that I get from my mates. And yeah, this is how I do it. So I'll show you some videos of using it in some other things another day, but this is the long and short of how it's done. Thanks heaps for watching. Hope you enjoyed.